In Walmart's Who Newville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Who Newville, East, West, South, and North, could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart, who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
Moving from a pro baseball diamond to a Hollywood set is a rare occurrence. The examples start in the early 1900s, when vaudeville and silent films were a natural spot for sports heroes. The pattern continues all the way to modern Hollywood studios and the current media scene. Athletes across baseball history have leveraged their sports fame to build awesome second acts. Let's look at the top 9 MLB players who swapped stadiums for on-screen appearances. Today, on Rounders, a history of baseball in America. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Jeff Lambert, and welcome to the show. We're going to examine the stories of 9 professional baseball players who leveraged their athletic careers to start new ones as on-stage or on-screen actors. Some were fueling a second passion. Some did it for survival after playing days were done. Some used their skills on the field to build legacies that exist in Hollywood still today. It's been a fascinating topic to study, and if you're interested in learning more about the baseball to Hollywood pipeline, I highly recommend you check out 3 things that I used for research. One of them is an ebook called From Spring Training to Screen Test, Baseball Players Turned Actors. That's an ebook that's produced by the Society for American Baseball Research. It was edited by Rob Edelman and friend of the show, Bill Nowlin. There's also the Hall of Famer filmography, which was assembled by the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And then there was another book that I used called Bats, Balls, and Hollywood Stars, Hollywood's Love Affair with Baseball, which was written by Joe Siegman. So I'll put links to all those publications in the episode description for you to access. And finally, before we get started, if you're new or you're returning to check out this episode, you can help me keep growing the show by just taking 2 simple steps. Number 1, make sure to subscribe to the show on the platform that you're using. If you're using Spotify, if you're using YouTube, if you're using Apple Podcasts, whatever it is, just make sure you subscribe to the show. That helps us get into the algorithm for other people to find the show who are baseball fans. The other thing that you can do that really helps me as well is sign up as a free subscriber. Go over to substack.com. You can get even more features and you can dive deeper into the episodes. I include quotes, I include photos, I include videos, all sorts of extras that you can take advantage of. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into our episode today. The early 20th century brought an exciting mix of entertainment options for Americans. A trip to the theater to see a live performance was very popular during this time. Additionally, the rise of silent films also brought exciting new opportunities for athletes interested in a bigger name with the general public. These were the players, the pioneers that set the blueprint for the athlete as entertainer model that would become more common with future generations. So let's look at who some of those individuals were. Let's start off with Turkey Mike Donlin. The flamboyant playboy Mike Donlin was a larger-than-life figure of baseball's dead ball era. He only played 7 seasons, yet he compiled a .333 lifetime batting average and a .468 slugging percentage. Those are numbers that compare favorably with Hall of Fame contemporaries. Even though he was described by the New York Times as a damn fine ball player, Donlin also built a reputation off the field as a flamboyant playboy who loved drinking and attending the theater. He was, as one observer at the time noticed, quote, a nightcrawler in the truest sense, end quote. He married into a vaudeville family, and from that, he put together an act with fellow professional pitcher Marty McHale, and they started a show called Right Off the Bat. And the duo were billed as Donlin of the Giants and McHale of the Yankees, and they intentionally used their baseball fame to achieve theatrical success with this new effort. McHale even admitted in an interview that, quote, Mike and I wouldn't have been such an attraction if it hadn't been for baseball, end quote. So this stage act, which was done, at night after their games were over, this was a secondary project for them. This stage act that they put together led to a starring role for Donlin in a 1916 silent film also entitled Right Off the Bat. The movie was an autobiographical story of his life where he wins the big game and gets the girl. Some critics at the time, however, they panned the movie for altering the facts of his life for marketing and entertainment value. And they left out conveniently his reputation as a party boy persona and his many troubles with the law. But Donlin's two-man show was a promising start in Hollywood because he had a pleasant speaking voice and he had the niche fame around him. So that served him well in an era where we saw the landscape transitioning to talking pictures. And he used that springboard to land several more leading spots in films throughout the 1920s. But his later years were a struggle for him. He was only cast in supporting roles, and that party boy lifestyle that he had lived during his playing career brought several significant health issues that limited his acting ability. In fact, by the 1930s, friends in the film industry organized a minstrel show specifically to raise money for a major surgery that he needed at the Mayo Clinic. He did continue to find later minor gigs here and there, but after that big start, Mike Donlin was increasingly viewed as a, quote, relic of an earlier, more raucous era, a cautionary tale of talent diverted and potential unfulfilled. Next, let's look at John McGraw, the Little Napoleon. John McGraw is a figure we've discussed on the show before. Authors Tom DeLeese and Jay Seaborg came to the show to discuss the original National League Baltimore Orioles, and we talked about McGraw at length in that episode. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the notes for you to check out. So John McGraw was one of the top players on that Orioles squad, and he was a titan of early baseball, both as a player and a manager. As the team's skipper, he earned the nickname Little Napoleon because he had a very dictator-like approach to running his team. After he left the Orioles, he was a manager for the New York Giants, and he was a key architect of what was called inside baseball, which is a style of play that prioritized cunning and strategy over just brute force. So McGraw wasn't afraid to make a public spectacle as this Little Napoleon. He was ejected from 118 games in his career, which is far more than any other manager, and was said to, quote, eat gunpowder every morning for breakfast and wash it down with warm blood, end quote. McGraw brought that fiery personality that he had earned on field and in the dugout to the vaudeville stage and silent screen during his after-hours time. He would often play himself in shows, bringing some authenticity to early baseball films and early baseball on-stage shows. In fact, he was the title character in a silent crime film called Detective Swift. Shortly after that film, he starred in a drama entitled Fighting Mad. He also appeared alongside one of his players, Mike Donlin, who we talked about previously, in that 1915 feature Right Off the Bat. McGraw built on that, and he had a significant role in the 1917 silent film One Touch of Nature, which was a romance story told from a baseball angle. McGraw's foray into acting wasn't just a side job. It was an early example of an athlete understanding and harnessing the power of media. His presence on screen was an extension of what people were seeing of his authority on the field. And for audiences, seeing the famous manager in a film was a chance to get a glimpse of the man who dominated the sports pages in person or in a different environment. So he was the first guy to really demonstrate that a powerful personality on the diamond could translate seamlessly to the growing worlds of stage and cinema. Next up, let's talk about Babe Ruth, the colossus of the big screen. So for George Herman Ruth, Babe Ruth, as we better know him, a career in motion pictures was a logical step considering his level of global fame. As a player, he single-handedly ended the dead ball era, and he transformed baseball into a power-hitting spectacle. He had that on-field dominance that matched his larger-than-life personality. So Babe Ruth was a sports hero, but he was also this unmistakable American icon that everybody knew. So it was only natural that Hollywood would try to capture that popularity and translate it into box office success. So Ruth's foray into Hollywood filmmaking started during the silent era. His first feature hit was a 1920 film entitled Head and Home, which was a fictionalized account of his life. He starred in later films like 1927's Babe Comes Home, and he appeared alongside another silent era star, Harold Lloyd, in the 1928 comedy Speedy. These roles were often built around his real life public persona as this fun loving, powerful slugger. He didn't fictionalize characters, he played himself in these roles. His most popular appearance on screen, however, came in 1942 when he played himself in the film The Pride of the Yankees, which was a biopic of his former teammate Lou Gehrig. His own health had started to decline around this time, but Ruth delivered a very moving performance in that film that had cemented his image as a sports star, and it also really lent himself to being a really talented individual on screen as well. He was portraying himself, but he wasn't just acting. He was really the first baseball player to engage in an on-screen legacy building campaign. And this has ensured that his larger than life presence was going to be preserved for future generations of fans. Next, let's talk about Jim Thorpe, the world's greatest athlete. So Jim Thorpe's life was filled with both spectacular triumphs and heartbreaking tragedy. His foray into acting, unfortunately, was the same. Jim Thorpe was an Olympic champion in the pentathlon and the decathlon. He was also a college and professional football legend, but he was also a Major League Baseball player. After his sports career ended, he faced a lot of hardship, and he was trying to make ends meet in any way that he could. He worked for a time as a ditch digger, but he eventually settled in Southern California to try and find work in the movies. And in Hollywood, Thorpe was mainly hired, unfortunately, for roles as an on-screen extra, which is a downright disrespectful insult considering his worldwide fame. These roles did bring him some meaningful face time, but they were usually stereotypical roles and focused on his Native American ancestry. So Thorpe appeared in multiple westerns, such as the 1941 film They Died with Their Boots On. Legendary actor Errol Flynn starred in the same biography of General George Armstrong Custer. Thorpe played the role of a Native American extra and had no lines in the film. There's an urban legend that Thorpe actually knocked out Errol during filming, but I couldn't find any credible sources that corroborated this. Jim Thorpe also played an extra in the renowned 1951 movie Wagon Master. His film credit on IMDb for this movie reads, quote, Navajo Indian, end quote. He also took on numerous uncredited parts, including a pirate in the 1935 movie Captain Blood, a convict in 1949's White Heat, and he even played a New York theatergoer in the original King Kong movie. So why did he keep taking on these non-assuming roles? And it came down to one thing: Thorpe needed the money. The image of the world's greatest athlete being reduced to an anonymous background extra really is a sad one, but he was doing what he needed to do to survive. Thorpe's story really highlights the roller coaster nature of athletic fame and how one's time in the spotlight can be fleeting.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
All right, let's move on to part 2 of the show, which we're going to focus on Hollywood's golden age and which players were able to transition into the movie and TV industry during this time. So Hollywood's golden age, this is when the film industry really consolidated into a powerful studio system, and it really transformed the landscape of entertainment. If you were a baseball player who made a name on the field, you became a highly sought-after asset for productions, particularly in television. That was highlighted by none other than Chuck Connors, the Rifleman. Chuck Connors was a multi-talented athlete, and he possessed both physical talent and this natural charisma from an early age. He played varsity basketball at Seton Hall, and he served as a tank instructor in the Army during World War II. Connors pursued a 2-sport professional career, playing for the Boston Celtics and the newly formed Basketball Association of America. During that time, he also was fast climbing the ladder in the Brooklyn Dodgers farm system. He was a very talented first baseman, but his path to the majors was blocked by future Hall of Famer Gil Hodges on the Dodgers. And Connors knew that fact, and he knew that was going to limit his future in Brooklyn. And playing for the Celtics in the newly formed Professional Basketball League wasn't bringing in a lot of cash. He found himself shortly after being traded to the Chicago Cubs, and Connors was assigned to their top farm club, the Los Angeles Angels of the Pacific Coast League. So this assignment proved to be the most important moment in his career. So in a later interview, Connors reflected on that trade and said, quote, "Now who goes to games in LA? Producers, directors, writers, casting directors. I became a kind of favorite of the show business people, unbeknownst to myself," end quote. So as he made plays on the field for the Angels, he began getting roles in films during the offseason. After one acting gig check came through for $12,000, which was more than double his season-long baseball salary, he retired from the game in 1953 to focus on his new profession, acting. His decision paid off spectacularly. In 1958, he landed the role of Lucas McCain in the television western The Rifleman. The show became a massive hit, and Connors became an icon of his era. He portrayed McCain as this righteous man who was a devoted single father, and he really took pride in the show's moral compass. He explained in an interview with TV Guide that, quote, "At the end of the show, I would explain to Mark essentially that sometimes violence is necessary, but it isn't good. You never win when you kill someone," end quote. Connors made headlines again in baseball later on in his acting career, but it was for a different reason. In 1965, Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale were locked in a holdout with the Los Angeles Dodgers over a contract dispute. Chuck Connors stepped in as the intermediary, and he helped broker deals for both players to remain with the club. Next up, we have Pat Flaherty, the ubiquitous character actor. Pat Flaherty's life before Hollywood was a mix of on-field talent and battlefield heroics. He was a minor league baseball player and a World War I pilot with the U.S. Army Aviation Corps. He was part of the bullpen for the 1921 World Series champion New York Giants. He decided after that to switch over to a very short-lived career in football, and then decided to take on acting as a full-time career. And when I say full-time, I mean full-time. Flaherty became one of the most prolific and recognizable character actors of his generation, with approximately 250 film credits to his name. Flaherty used that athletic background that he had to get hired in the growing genre of baseball-based films during this time. And he played recognizable roles in the sport's most classic films, including he was the Red Sox manager Bill Kerrigan in 1948's The Babe Ruth Story. He played umpire Bill Clem in 1952's The Winning Team, starring Ronald Reagan. He was the Braves manager in Angels in the Outfield as well. He also had roles in Pride of the Yankees, produced in 1942, The Jackie Robinson Story in 1950, and The Stratton Story, which came out in 1949. He didn't have a lot of starring roles, but Flaherty embraced that niche as a dependable role player. And he once humorously stated, quote, "Strangely, in about 9 of 10 parts that come my way, the script always calls for me to be knocked down. And I've compiled a pretty good list of on-screen celebrities who either won decisions over me or coyoed me. Among them are Clark Gable, Spencer Tracy, Jimmy Cagney, and don't laugh, Jane Withers," end quote. Now let's transition to the modern era where cameos became big money. So as we transition into the 80s and 90s, we see the rise of television and talk shows and brand endorsements just all over TV and the movies in this latter half of the 20th century. And that deeply changed the relationship between athletes and the entertainment industry. People wanted celebrities to be more than just playing parts on screen. They wanted them to be more personable and more accessible. And the opportunities for baseball players evolved accordingly. So acting was no longer about a separate job or a post-career transition, but it was more about leveraging their existing fame. Let's look at some examples. Let's start with Bob Uecker, Mr. Baseball. Bob Uecker masterfully transformed an unremarkable career as a backup catcher into one of America's most beloved entertainers. His time in the majors was forgettable. He left with a lifetime batting average of 200. He famously joked that when he played for the Phillies, manager Gene Mosh would yell down the bench, quote, Grab a bat, Bob, and stop this rally, end quote. His humorous personality became his ticket to stardom long after he hung up his spikes. His entertainment career was launched through His entertainment career was launched into the national spotlight through nearly 100 appearances on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, where his stories about his playing days made him a household name. This success translated directly into a thriving acting career. From 1985 to 1990, Euchre played George Owens, a sports writer on the popular ABC sitcom Mr. Belvedere. The role was a perfect fit for him, and it allowed him to channel his wisecracking charm for a national TV audience. Euchre's most iconic role, however, came on the big screen in one of my favorite movies as the hard-drinking, inappropriate announcer Harry Doyle in the Major League film series. His performance was unforgettable, delivering legendary lines like,
"Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed."
that have since become quotable nuggets for baseball fans. Euchre, even with the Hollywood fame, kept a long-standing role as the radio voice of the Milwaukee Brewers. His nickname of Mr. Baseball was well-earned indeed. Our eighth player on the list is Steve Garvey, the All-American. On screen throughout the 1970s, Steve Garvey became known as the All-American athlete to baseball fans. He was a clean-cut Iron Man first baseman for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He had wholesome values that he shared in every interview. He was well-dressed. He was clean-cut. He attended church. He was always available to sign an autograph. A school was even rededicated in his name. His manager, Tommy Lasorda, once remarked, quote, "If Garvey ever came to date my daughter, I'd lock the door and not let him out," end quote. Garvey's wholesome image led to multiple phone calls from production companies, even during his playing days. He was featured in the 1975 television movie Hey Coach, and he made appearances on popular shows of the era, including The Mike Douglas Show and Fantasy Island. Years later, that wholesome image was complicated by a series of paternity suits that were filed against him after his retirement from baseball. Those scandals came as a shock to the public because they were accustomed to that all-American persona that he had so carefully crafted, and that made his reputation in the public eye much more complex. And number 9 on our list is none other than Reggie Jackson, Mr. October. Well, Reggie Jackson's on-field persona was defined by those clutch heroics we know him for. He had some pretty notable moments as an actor, and that was unexpected by the general public when they happened. Would have been fun to see those like as they happened. I was a little bit younger when these occurred. But let's talk about him. There was the 1988 film The Naked Gun from the Files of the Police Squad, another favorite movie of mine. That movie featured Reggie Jackson as a mind-controlled assassin trying to kill Queen Elizabeth II. As he attempted to carry out the mission from the outfield during a baseball game, he had a very well-received deadpan performance, excuse me, that mirrored the serious nature that he was known for having on the field. And it was a moment of self-parody for him acting that out in a very tense situation. And I have one bonus throw-in for you, some other brief and memorable cameos. There's been so many of them in the modern era. Players have learned how to be able to just take those quick 2 minutes or one episode or short movie appearances to be able to take advantage of their fame, and they often played themselves. So this phenomena of this becoming normal in pop culture allowed athletes to capitalize on their fame without committing to a full-time acting career. So some memorable moments that have happened in recent years include Bobby Bonilla, a star slugger for the Pirates and Mets, appeared alongside Barry Bonds and Pedro Guerrero as one of the, quote, big whiffers in the 1993 family comedy Rookie of the Year. Their brief scene showed the major leaguers swinging and missing against the film's 12-year-old phenom pitcher. Then we have Derek Jeter, the iconic Yankees shortstop. He's made several cameo appearances. He was featured in an episode of Seinfeld. He also played himself in a brief scene in the 2003 Adam Sandler comedy Anger Management. Then we have John Kruk, the scruffy Phillies fan favorite. He's built a second career on television and film, including a cameo appearance as himself in the 2013 film Ring the Bell. which was a movie centered on spiritual values. We have Dodgers pitcher Don Newcomb, who was featured alongside a host of several Hall of Famers in the 1990 minor league drama Pastime. Home run king Sammy Sosa had cameos in the movies Hardball in 2001, On the Line in 2001, and Kissing a Fool in 1997. There is no shortage of MLB cameos in recent years. That's just a highlight of a few of them. So from the vaudeville stage to modern Hollywood blockbusters, the paths taken by baseball's actor-athletes have changed to fit the times that they played in. The pioneers of the silent film era translated that rugged on-field celebrity that was a little bit more niche into a new form of public performance. Then we see post-World War II athletes bring authenticity to the growing number of baseball-focused shows and movies. And then in today's media landscape, we have players leveraging their personalities and their fame through cameos and using social media, which lets them become everyday parts of our popular culture. So together, these 9 stories show the timeless intersection of sports and entertainment. And it leaves the question, what will it look like for tomorrow's players to further that relationship between on the field and off the field fame? It's going to be interesting to witness. Now, there were so many to choose from. I picked not my top 9. I'd love to hear from you, what you think, who I missed. Please leave a comment or send me an email at rounderspodcast@gmail.com. I want to thank you for joining me for another episode. I appreciate the support. Remember, there's only 2 seasons, winter and baseball. I'll see you next time.